Hey, everybody. Welcome to Stadium Drive, the podcast, 10 episode mini-series where we talk about how we made the first record. My name is Jeff, and this is Alex, and
Yep.
that's about it.
That's about it.
But no, yeah, so how this kind of came about, I guess Alex and I were driving to Wisconsin for a gig, and we were talking about like how could we almost kind of go back through and sort of highlight some of the really fun stories, maybe gear that was used for the first record, maybe what some of the lyrics are about. We get that question a lot.
Yep.
Like what are you even talking about? um, and so yeah, we were like, well, what if we just do a little mini series, talk about the first record as we get ready to drop the second record. Um, so yeah, I guess I don't know. From that day, I'm trying to remember. Like we were driving up to Wisconsin, and like I feel like we sort of had an idea for this, but we're not quite sure how this is going to go.
Well, like everything, it's been an evolution, right? Because I think we initially thought, well, when we first started talking about it, I know I kind of immediately thought of like a lot of YouTube videos that I've watched of like famous producers, kind of going through a mix of a popular song maybe that they worked on and kind of highlighting some of the cool things that they did with the mix. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different directions you can obviously take, an album and talk about it. So,
Yeah,
um,
that's actually a really good foreshadowing. Like,
mhm.
so you see the screens behind us. I think Alex is gonna
Yeah, we
throughout the
actually over
course
here.
of the series, we'll be able to kind of click through and show maybe some like really fun effects that you found.
Yeah,
I think definitely on the Don't I Know episode, there's kind of some fun ones that
yeah.
we'll highlight.
I'm no Chris Lord algae, but hopefully we can make this kind of fun for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, like I said, it's just kind of a fun thing. I think there's always an interest of like the shows, like how it's made or like those
Mhm.
behind the scenes things where I think people just find curiosity on like how it's built. We're literally in the studio where we literally recorded this entire record.
Mhm.
I think we can safely say everything on the first one, except for Claudia's violin part,
Yeah.
was done by the two of us.
Mhm.
Mastering was done by Mark Cusson, which we'll probably talk about in an episode.
Mhm.
Obviously, we had a ton of friends on the artwork side, but
Mhm.
like, yeah, it all kind of happened here.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun things to cover, and yeah, we
Mhm.
should probably get into it, huh?
Sweet. Yeah. So, like we said up top, there would be a 10 episode series, 10 episodes, 10 songs on the first record. And the first song is Walden. If you don't know that, you might have stumbled across this podcast on accident. You're probably looking for, I don't know, like some NPR show or something. But no, so Walden Part One.
We're not the row experts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is
just
not Ira
for the
Glass.
record.
This
Yeah.
is not Ira Glass. This is not. Um, sorry.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
So, so Walden Part One kicks off the record. This was a song we did live here. So rather than overdubbing a bunch of different tracks, we decided
Mhm.
to basically sit here.
And the only one on the record that we did decide to do that for, I
Mm.
believe. No click, no extra fluff. We kind of just sat in the room and hammered it out until we found a take that we
Mhm.
liked, basically.
Can you talk about like the pros and cons of doing that? Like the way we ended up doing it?
Yeah, obviously anytime, well, not obvious to some people maybe, but whenever you record to a click and kind of build a song up from, piece by piece, you give yourself a lot more room to edit and maneuver and fix things in post production. When you do something live and forgo the click and some of these other things, that uh, you might do with a cleaner product, you in doing so you give yourself breathing room where you don't have to, maybe you can slow the tempo down, speed it up, and in this case even maybe break a song entirely in half, which is what
Yeah.
we did.
Well, and to that point, the breathing room, like the other main difference we found is if you mess up, when it's just track by track, you can stop that one track and redo it.
Mhm.
Like how many times did we say that we recorded the Walden Part One?
We have 15 takes that we kept. Yeah,
So
15 that we kept, but there were probably quite a few that we started and, someone fumbled or, missed a lyric, missed a chord,
yeah,
whatever it might be.
yeah, because to kind of illustrate it even further, so just to give like a better example, it was two of us sitting in basically these chairs
Mhm.
with microphones on each of our guitars,
Mhm.
microphones on each of our voices,
Mhm.
and then we just pressed play and did it.
Yeah.
Um, And so yeah, whether one of those four inputs messed up at any time,
Right.
I think I fumbled the words like several times.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I think at that point we hadn't even really played the song live a whole
Yeah.
lot yet.
You had written that intro like the day of, I think.
That's right. Yeah, we didn't even have the intro figured out.
And actually, I should have said, I didn't say it up top, but for each episode, if you ever feel like pausing and actually going back listening, that intro is a great example. If you haven't heard the song or if you haven't heard it in a while, you should pause the episode right now and go listen. Because literally, that it's just this very naked, very like raw,
Mhm.
single note like phrase that you basically built in the moment.
Well, you sang me the melody, at least that you kind of had initially, and I, applied to guitar. I think whenever you take an idea, a musical idea, and move it from one instrument to another, like something about it kind of changes. That's really cool. So like you just added a little. I just added a little guitar flair instead of like vocal flair, and it
Yeah.
became what you hear on the record.
That's so good. I think at one point Peg she walks in and she's like, it sounds like almost like a little Civil
Yeah,
War, like,
yeah, Civil War of old folksy.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't even know Americana. Very old, very
hmm
very classic. I sometimes think of like even like an Irish drinking song or something like that. It has a very sing-alongable
yes,
aspect to
and
it.
repetition.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, again, listen to it if you haven't. But kind of getting into it, the impetus of like kind of where I was at when I wrote that, I think it was September of 23, um, and we had written almost most of the record, but we still had like a couple of things we were trying to fill in the gaps.
Hmm.
And I was like, I wanted something kind of simple and very like, yeah, kind of like this very not chant-y, but almost like yeah, like an Irish drinking song or an
Right.
ode, some type of like very simple,
Very rural,
repetitive.
folksy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was in Maine.
Right. You were on your vacation. I forgot
Yeah,
about that.
and I was literally camping, and I had my guitar and my notebook out, and basically, like what you hear, the first verse is very much so like, um, basically sitting in nature and kind of turning your brain off and letting like the sound of the wind and the leaves kind of like just chill you out for a
Mhm.
second, which I think you and I, since we were like in high school, that's kind of something that's resonated with us.
Definitely.
Um, the second verse talks about like a dragonfly landing in your hand, and basically that came from I as I was writing the lyrics on this notebook. I
Hmm.
kid you not, like this like bright red like scarlet dragonfly just like landed on the notebook for
That's
like a hot
awesome.
second, and
Yeah.
it was one of those things where you're like holding your breath because you don't want it to like fly away, but you're
Hmm.
also like it's one
Yeah.
of those things where it's like this fleeting moment. And so
Hmm.
the lyric that's like, let her know you'd rather never be apart. It's like
Hmm.
before that fleeting thing like flies away, like
Hmm.
tell it that you
Yeah.
think it's like a really beautiful thing, kind
Mhm.
of. Um, and don't let it fly away without telling it that you think it's a beautiful thing.
Right.
And then yeah, and then the third verse kind of goes into it has like some autumn like uh, descriptors. So very much so like it talks about like leaves changing from green to brown. It's
Mhm.
like a very on it's like an irreversible thing. And so like the that's used as a symbol to be like when you kind of take a moment to like sit down and like kind of like just like be, it can
Mhm.
create growth that's also irreversible, like kind of
Right.
a more like in the maturity sense. So
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
like the leaves changing and like you kind of changing, and it being September,
Mhm.
there's kind of this like autumn type
Mhm.
feel in the air. Uh, and then yeah, we'll wait to talk about verse four.
Maybe you are a thorough expert after all. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
well here's
starting to
it.
second guess myself. Should've
Actually, I
spoken so
mean,
soon.
I wonder how many people who are gonna watch this knew the Walden reference. Because I like when did we
I have to think
raid
a good
that?
amount of. I mean, I know we hit it in high school, like sophomore, junior year, something like
Yeah,
that. But I read it in college, the
mhm,
whole book that is.
sure.
But yeah. Also, Walden's out kind of by Boston. I never did go. So that's
Um,
just how uncommitted I am to this project. I didn't go to the pond when I lived less than
honestly,
an hour away.
I will say
Kind of awful.
my sister went, and low key, she basically was like, "It's kind of just like a place now."
Yeah,
Um,
that's fine.
like yeah, it's kind of just like very like commercialized around it.
There's just like a bus stop.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's like not natural at
yeah,
all, actually. Like,
that's so America. I love it. All right.
but no, actually. So as we're kind of getting in the intro too, and this is for the first record, this is very much so a thing that's maybe special to this one than it is on the second one coming
Mhm,
out. And that is like, how did you feel when I like basically I kind of had written this on my own and
mhm.
kind of brought it to you in like a 70% complete like product. Like
Yeah,
how
right.
like when you I guess how is that like kind of getting this and being like, oh, this sucks, like we need to fix it, or
Well,
like
I loved the concept immediately because it's a strong melody, and I felt that at that point we kind of needed something as like an opener that like was simple and yet uh, but yet captured kind of everything we were gonna do with the album. Because we at that point I think had some bigger songs that you'll hear as we go down the list, but we kind of needed something that hinted at that without being that, and I thought that nailed it. Yeah, as you said, it was maybe 70% done. I think you had the song written. I think it was just a matter of finding some fun ways to break it up so that it wasn't just verse instrumental break verse instrumental break.
Mhm.
I think the way we split it up wound up being pretty neat.
Do you remember why we decided to do it live versus uh, dubbed?
I think that kind of goes back to that point. We felt like we needed something that was just a little bit different than everything else we had done. And I think at least my initial thought was, well, it'd be really easy to just do this live because one, we hadn't really hardly worked it up yet. And so it was fun for us to kind of figure it out as we went and I think that kind of guided us as with the arrangement even.
Sure.
And yeah, I would just say that that became the way it just became a fun way of like figuring the song out conveniently while recording it almost. It just
That
felt very real, in
that
that
is a good point because we had like even though it starts the record, I mean arguably this was probably the fifth or sixth song that we recorded
Mhm.
like in real time, and so we had
Yeah.
already done a ton of the studio work,
Mhm.
and then we kind of broke it up by doing this kind of like you said, this real.
Mhm.
And it's kind of funny because you realize how little we like sit right across from each other and sing at each other
Yeah.
basically
Yeah.
into that like we had to get kind of that like weird energy of like, oh,
I think
we're
you
like
can
doing
hear
this in the
in the
moment.
performance, especially in the vocal performance, that like there's maybe more care. It feels a little less like mechanical cut and paste. Like here are the background harmonies.
Hmm.
There are times that I think there's one of the verses where I nearly forget to start singing the harmony part. I'm like I don't know if I just missed the first word or I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but it's stuff like that that
Yeah,
like it's technically a mistake maybe, but it feels good when
yeah,
you hear it, and you can't have those things when you do something kind of all by a metronome and you're kind of thinking in that mode.
yeah. Well, actually, it's funny you mentioned that because I think it kind of it's a really cool theme for the whole project, and actually something you say quite a bit in the room here is like for
Mhm.
this project specifically, we're not going for like so perfect that it's like almost sterile. Like to
Mhm.
have kind of some of those mess ups
Mhm.
actually kind of give it character and
I'm
texture.
a big believer in that philosophy.
And
Yes.
especially for like an Americana project like this,
Mhm.
we don't need it to literally just line up,
Yeah.
every because I would also say on that one too, like uh, we're playing the guitar at the same time. So
Mhm.
like there's going to obviously always be moments where maybe strums don't line up or
Completely.
whatever,
Yeah.
but
Exactly.
it kind of feels more like what we would do live, like
Mhm.
if we were sitting on stage
Well, it's
playing.
very authentically us. It's like, yeah, I mean, we could have called Billy Strings up and paid him a huge amount of money to come play the lead on this, and it would have been
Mhm.
awesome,
Yeah,
but it wouldn't have been us. And so
yeah.
I think you gotta kind of
Mhm.
weigh the pros and cons of those decisions. But I'm happy with how it came out.
Before before we talk about why we decided to split it,
Hmm.
because Walden Part Two will be the conclusion of the series.
Hmm.
I did want to mention briefly the bird sounds because
Yeah.
I don't remember, like, I'm curious to know what you thought when I like brought this idea to you,
Mhm.
but when you if you spin the record from front to back, you'll notice as Walden Part 1 starts, it starts with this like basically birds chirping.
Mhm.
And again, the idea was, writing the song outdoors, strumming along to it for the first couple times outdoors while I was writing it. It was supposed to kind of have this like bigger world sort of sound.
Mhm.
But the funny, so to actually get that's a real recording of bird noises. It's not just like a audio track from like YouTube library.
Which we did. So we did use some of those for the
Yeah,
record.
I was gonna stick around to episode 10.
Yeah, yeah, we did use.
We had to use some of those to cover
We
up maybe
spent a lot of time looking for the perfect campfire noise. I'll tell you what.
you're like, this one's too crackly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the girl I was dating at the time, I was spending some time over at her place over in Nebraska, and I think she had to work or something. So I was working on music just at the
Mhm.
apartment, and she had this like I think it was like a third story apartment
Mhm.
with a balcony on it, and she always talked about how these birds had built this nest, and they were
Mhm.
just super annoying. Like they were always just loud and obnoxious.
Mhm.
Um, and I was like, huh, interesting. And for whatever reason, I had taken my recording gear to Nebraska. I don't
Mhm.
just to create some social media content, I guess.
Mhm.
And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just stick this microphone out the door and
Yeah.
see if I can get like some of the bird noises from this and
Mhm.
see if it translates. Because in my mind, I'm like, there's no way this is gonna sound good.
Mhm.
And actually, her AC was going,
Yeah.
so you can actually, when the record first starts, you hear kind of this like,
Mhm.
like, and it's that low hum
Yeah.
from the AC unit that's like sticking out the window.
Mhm.
But yeah, then basically the birds start, and I found like a 10-second little clip of it where the birds were like really going, and then I just like
Mhm.
clipped that and looped it. And
Yeah.
so you were able to just like I don't know when I was like, hey, we got to have some birds from my girlfriend's
Yeah.
apartment. Were you like, what the
No,
hell?
I am a big fan of field recordings and music. I love
Field
stuff like
recording.
that. No, I mean, that's what I call them. I maybe this is a reference some people get that listen to this might get, but a good friend of mine, Rusty McIntyre, big into going out and sticking a microphone on like a creek or just whatever crazy thing he
Yeah,
happens to see when he's driving
that's a
down
good
the
point.
road. He so I love that stuff. And I think it really was perfect for this song, especially because again, I think we knew that this was kind of going to bookend the album, and because of that, we I think it's obvious with the name Walden, we're big nature fans. I think to incorporate some nature sounds it was maybe it's even too on the nose, you might argue. I'm not a music critic for good reason, but
And I think
yeah.
it's yeah, to that point, like it added an element. Certainly it might have covered up maybe some flubs in the live recording that maybe where we needed to
Well,
kind of fill in
This
some.
this is a this is I don't remember actual technical mistakes, but I do remember at one point, I don't know, I think it's on Walden Part 2, a microphone or a mic cable gets bumped or kicked, and there's a little bit of static that's created while that happens. And because we wound up putting a campfire noise crackle over it, you don't even notice it because of the crackling that's happening from the campfire.
Yeah,
So kind of a funny little
yeah,
happenstance there.
that'll be fun to kind of reminisce about that on the last one. But um, last kind of question, because again, I'm kind of curious to.
Mhm.
We were talking before we started this. We haven't.
Well, before
we-
we go on, maybe should I look at the bird noises quick while we're
Sure,
here?
yeah.
I mean, we might as well test this aspect of it out, folks. We haven't even
It's kind of we were talking about this.
my,
We
my
haven't
password.
listened to these in a while.
Well,
Like we
that and I haven't isolated these birds in a long time. So let's go look at these birds. I'm just gonna loop this bird noise we have here. There she is.
so you're
And
getting that low hum from the AC unit.
and so if I wanted to really get rid of that hum, I could have probably gone a little more extreme with this EQ. Now it's gone.
Yeah,
But I wanted it to feel like it was just like a phone outside.
sure.
Oop, do that. Anyways, but yeah, pretty simple processing on it. Just some light compression, some light EQing, and some reverb. Nothing fancy. But yeah, there you go. There's
You
your
know,
bird sounds.
Well, this will be fun because we haven't like opened up these files
Right.
like
Yeah.
not since March of 04 or
Mhm.
24, but
Mhm.
definitely not in a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've thrown the record on in the car once or twice since we finished it, just kind of on a whim. You know,
Mhm.
if I was on like a long drive. But yeah, these songs are going to be fresh for me as
Mhm.
we kind of go through these next few episodes. It's gonna
Yeah,
be fun.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Do you remember why we decided to split the song up in two?
I think mostly for arrangement purposes. I felt like it was gonna feel like too solid. Just the amount of verses you had and the way we'd kind of built it with like instrument broke it up with instrumentals. I think it just made sense to me to split it into two almost immediately.
Hmm. Like I said, I don't
Hmm.
quite remember, but
Yeah,
um, who cares?
yeah. Who
It ended
cares?
up
It's
working
fun.
out. I
Yeah,
thought it was a great little bookend.
yeah.
So
Well, one of the other greatest duos of all time has an album called Bookends, so I think it's only appropriate that we bookend our album
as one of the greatest duos of all time.
as one of the most subpar duos of all time.
Yeah, taking a direction from the greats.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. Well, anyways, I think that's probably a pretty good way to start. Like I said, we're not quite sure where this is going to go. We'll kind of figure it out as the episodes progress. Hope you all stick with it. This record is out. It's been out for about a year or so now. We got hard copies, so hopefully y'all are taking a listen. And yeah, we'll see you
Yeah, check
on the
it
next
out.
episode.
We're Simon and Garfunkel.
Peace.
Thanks.
We're Simon.
I had to finish the joke.